Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn. I'm delighted to welcome the regular guest on the show, Ben Habib. How are you doing, Ben?
Good morning. Very well indeed. Thank you, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's lovely to see you as always. Now, you launched Advance UK on this very show on the 30th of June. You've declared that Britain's heart is barely beating. You set a bold target of 30,000 members, promising £100,000 of your own money to fuel the party. What's the current status?
So we've raised about £138,000. We've got nearly 14,000 members and supporters. And so I think we now rank, by the way, I think we rank seventh largest political party in the United Kingdom by number of members. And the sixth largest is SNP with 50 odd thousand. So we're behind the SNP at the moment. But that's not bad in 4 weeks, is it?
No, well, that's very good. Well, there's another new party since we last spoke, being formed by Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, a great name for current affairs, called Your Party. They collected, they claim, 200,000 sign-ups in less than 24 hours. What's your take on Corbyn and Sultana?
Well, that figure is false because if you go to the website where they invite you to sign up, you're not actually joining as a member. It's like going to any website and simply registering your interest. So it's not a membership figure in the way that ours is, where people have paid money and declared their support of the party and committed to assist in many ways, leafleting and so on. So it's not quite that, but they represent a growing constituency of hard left, if it's possible to go even further left than Keir Starmer, a sort of hard left constituency in this country that would tear down the state completely. Keir Starmer is anti-British. Corbyn is sort of rabidly anti-British, as far as I can see.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Well, the other thing that we launched, as I say, within a nanosecond on June the 30th, you're launching Advance UK. We had Rupert Lowe doing his own initiative with Restore Britain. Last time you were very candid about it. You said it was a sort of failure to recruit him as leader, which was your objective. What's the current state? Because everybody, in response to our interviews, and there have been lots of those, have said, look, just get together. You need to unite. Otherwise, we're just going to give another 4 years to Starmer.
So I think last time when we spoke, I did also say that I didn't really understand Rupert's motivation for a movement. Uh, we don't need another movement. What we need is the ability to change politics, and that can only be done at the ballot box. Rupert is pulling on Tories, Reform members, members of Advance UK, I think are members of Restore Britain, including myself. So it's a cross-party uh, set of supporters he's got. And I don't know what his medium to long-term intention is, but the difficulty he faces if he's considering turning it into a party at some point is that the minute you go to convert a movement into a party, you lose the Tories, you lose the Reformers, you lose the Advanced UK members, and you don't really know what you've got. Um, so perhaps Rupert is happy with, banging the drum, making the arguments, signing petitions, and launching inquiries and stuff, and that's all very worthy and worthwhile doing. But for me, it doesn't get you to the point where you can actually really change the way the country is governed. And I do believe, there's a desperate need for a proper pro-British party on the British political landscape.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, as you say, a number of people have joined both, including yourself. You very publicly spoken about your support for Tommy Robinson. He's returned that support. In fact, in a tweet, he says, I think I'll join both. Many of those left reform because of his lies, is what he's saying about Farage, and attitude towards me. And they've joined Advance UK. Now, one of the reasons that Rupert said he wouldn't speak at the September the 13th rally that Tommy's organising is he was scared it was going to alienate some of his supporters. How do you counter those critics who say you're risking branding Advance UK as too extreme for mainstream?
Well, I think it's extraordinary, isn't it, that at an event which may be attended by a couple of hundred thousand people, that they can be branded as extreme. I haven't been to a Unite the Kingdom uh, rally before, but I've looked at video clips and there's multi-ethnicities in the crowd. There are Northern Irish flags, St. George's flags, Union flags, children, lots of women. I think the security at the Unite the Kingdom rallies is provided mostly by women because it de-escalates the risk of violence and so on. So they're peaceable events, they're family gatherings, and they're attended by all from across the United Kingdom. I can't get my mind round to concluding that they're far right extremists. That is the language that the anti-British brigade would like to use to categorize those of us who believe in the country. But I reject it. And I think you and I have had this discussion before. The split in British politics is not between the left and the right. It's between those who believe in this country and those who don't. We happen to believe in our country, and those that don't like it. And so they categorize us as right wing or far right.
Yeah.
And so I reject that.
No, and I think that's absolutely right. I mean, as you know, I had Tommy Robinson on the Andrew Eborn Show. It was filmed by his son as soon as Tommy came out of prison. And a lot of people sort of criticized the fact that I would even interview him. But my only mistress, as I say, is the truth. Was I right to interview him?
Absolutely. We're about free speech, aren't we? The four pillars of Advanced UK are nation state, freedom of speech, democracy, and equality under the law. You can't have democracy or indeed equality under the law without freedom of speech. And it's vital that people are heard, even if you find their views repugnant, particularly if you find their views repugnant, because then you have the opportunity to debate them, reveal them, and for the nation to make its own minds up, but people to make their own minds up about whether or not they want them. And so everyone should be given a platform. I find it quite peculiar. Some people are prepared to share platforms with apologists for the IRA, rub shoulders with them, including the Attorney General Lord Hermer, who represented Jerry Adams. But he's very quick to denounce British citizens like Tommy Robinson. Um, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. There's so many quotes about freedom of speech. You've got to have views that are abhorrent to yours. I mean, in Tommy's interview with me, it was actually his most emotional ever. He was in tears. The fact that it was only his son and me in the room with him. It was. He laughed. He cried. He revealed a side of himself which has never been revealed before. But as you rightly say, the general public are not stupid. They want to hear it directly from the person's mouth, so it's not misrepresented. And that's got to be right, hasn't it?
It's got to be right. And um, the way you reveal if there is an extreme ideology, the way you reveal it is to allow it to express itself,
Yeah.
not by shutting it down.
No, absolutely. Well, it's the anniversary of the horrendous events in Southport. Misinformation about the suspect's identity. It fueled riots last year. You've been very vocal, including on X, about cultural decline. How will Advance UK balance your commitment to free speech with preventing harmful disinformation, ensuring tragedies like Southport don't happen again?
So the tragedy in Southport, of course, the violent protests that followed it, are tragic in themselves. But the real tragedy in Southport was the fact that three gorgeous little girls were killed, and I think 14 or 15 others were really very seriously wounded by a barbarian. And the way Advance UK would deal with that tragedy is to make sure that everyone is equal under the law, that there won't be any slack given to anyone based on their ethnicity or their background or social standing. Lady Justice will be blindfolded, and that starts from the police all the way through to the judges, and that we have a much lower tolerance than we clearly do at the moment for crime. I hate the two words petty crime, for example. I think they encourage criminality because they instruct criminals, they inform criminals that actually there are kinds of crimes that even the state doesn't take seriously. And that is, of course, a gateway for further criminality. And so we would remove, for example, the existence of the expression petty crime. All crime is crime. There are victims from all criminal activity. And we would bear down on those in our society who behave like Axel Rudikabana did. And we would also stop the boats, remove the European Convention of Human Rights and the HRA from our fabric of British law, which has effectively given a protective blanket to criminals because we're always worried about the criminals' interests. We've forgotten what it means for the victims. Remove the HRA so that that false equivalence that's made between the human rights of criminals and those of victims is removed, and criminals are treated as they should be as criminals. But as I said, sorry, I started saying and then interrupted myself, was, enforce our borders, stop criminal elements entering the country, make sure we know those who are here in the country, and make sure that the people who are in this country actually are pro-British, essentially, and buy into our culture, our roots, our constitution, our freedom of speech, our democracy, and all the values and other things that you and I took for granted when we were growing up.
Yeah, and you've spoken very publicly about the Human Rights Act, and as you say, it's made border control illegal and crime consequence free. The Online Safety Act that's had been ramping up all the time. We've got the age verification in the last few days. That similarly undermined law and order. Could it curb harmful content like Southport's misinformation without restricting free speech, as critics like Elon Musk have claimed?
Well, the what happened around Southport was all muzzled even before the Online Harms Act came into being. It was all muzzled, and I think one of the reasons we had the protest was because the Prime Minister, Yvette Cooper, and Merseyside Police were not honest with the public. The public knew something had gone awfully wrong, and Starmer deflected it, gaslit the public by saying it was a Welshman who committed the crimes in in Southport. It wasn't a Welshman; it was a second generation Rwandan who held a British passport, and that was relevant information for people who are concerned about the state of the country. So the Online Harms Act is merely an extension of the already increasing shutting down of free speech, and it needs to be resisted. You can protect children without needing a new act of parliament.
Yeah, and how would you protect children in that case then? Because it's always the balance, isn't it, between freedom of speech and freedom from consequences.
Yeah, but it's not for the state to do it, Andrew, is it? We're abrogating our obligations as parents increasingly, and I think the state likes it because it gives it more control of the way children are brought up. It wants to remove, without wishing to sound conspiratorial, there is an interest in the state removing children from its parents and then effectively indoctrinating them with the kinds of ideologies that we now see being pervaded in schools, such as transgender ideology, critical race theory, and so on. And the Online Harms Act enables the state yet again to do that which it wants to. The policing of children should be done by their parents. The parents, we need more pro-family. A more pro-family approach to regulations and laws in this country. We need to stop breaking up the family unit in the pursuit of forcing everyone to work. I mean, I say forcing everyone to work, but actually the United Kingdom isn't working. They've managed somehow to break the family unit without actually promoting both parents into work. It's a miracle that they've achieved, that they've managed to do that. But what we need is, the family unit to be acting as a family, for families to be empowered, for parenting to be empowered so that, at least one parent is at home looking after the children and until a certain age, until the children can be trusted to go on and, monitor themselves to some extent. And that's what's broken. It's the family unit that's been so pressured. And of course, schools take a great responsibility in all of this too. Schools have got to reacquaint themselves with the notion that they're educational establishments, not indoctrination facilities. And children at school need to be taught about the harm that can come to them if they go on social media and so on, and just make them aware of the risks and then allow the children to make their own decisions. I mean, we had, when I was growing up, perhaps we didn't have social media, but we still had access to extreme material if we wanted it. And I remember as a child positively rejecting it because I'd been brought up to reject it and I didn't want it.
Yeah, and that's got to be right, hasn't it? I mean, I always say it takes a village to bring up a child, and to give the responsibility to the state has got to be wrong. People need to have alternative views and an opportunity to counteract that. We need to encourage people to question everything. If we just put them in cotton wool, it's very dangerous. As you know, I encouraged everybody to post their questions since you're a regular guest on the show. And we've been a tsunami of questions for you as a result of your various statements. Oscar SRME has asked, what can be done to extract Northern Ireland from the grip of the EU?
Well, we have to denounce the Northern Ireland Protocol and the Windsor Framework, which is effectively the Northern Ireland Protocol. We have to denounce it. And one of the things that an incoming advanced UK government would do if we were elected is irritate the EU greatly. We would tear up the Northern Ireland Protocol. We would tear up the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which has actually prohibited the United Kingdom from being able to chart an independent path for its own good, hitching us at the hip in a regulatory way with the EU, as well as accepting the EU arrest warrant, committing us to their military defense programs, committing us to the European Convention of Human Rights. Leaving the ECHR is going to cause a bust up with the EU. Any pro-British government, any government wishing to do what's right for the country is going to have a scrap with the EU. And in order to have that scrap, in order to bring Northern Ireland back in, denounce the protocol, and be able to have the scrap with the EU, we need to become fighting fit as an economy because the scrap will play itself out through economics. They will try and punish us economically. And the way to deal with them uh, is to be absolutely ready for that economic challenge. Ditch net zero, ditch the high taxation and regulations that have beset our fossil fuel industry. Start extracting gas from the North Sea, reduce our cost of energy, make ourselves energy independent, reduce taxes on business and businesses working in middle classes, reduce the burden of regulation on businesses, get rid of all the nonsense that we've inherited after 40 years of EU membership, liberate the United Kingdom, and we will be able to take the EU on and beat them. Remember, people keep forgetting we are the EU's client. They export to us. We import 100 billion more than we export to them. And so they need us. And this notion that, oh no, they're a 500 million people market, we need them, rubbish. They need us more than we need them because we are the dominant player when it comes to importing their goods. And so we must denounce the Northern Ireland Protocol. We must bring Northern Ireland firmly back into the United Kingdom. And there will undoubtedly be an economic scrap with the EU, and we need to prepare ourselves for it.
Okay. Another criticism of your stance, if you like, in setting up Advance UK is all about this splitting the vote. And a couple of examples at York Hippo, probably not their real name, they've warned your criticism of Farage could lead to another Labour government. Lady Rebecca One fears Advance UK splits the right wing vote. What's your response to that?
So there are two questions there, Andrew. The first is whether or not we get a Labour government because Advance UK exists. And the other one is the so-called of the splitting the right-wing vote. They're similar, the questions, but they're not identical. Just addressing the first one first, making sure we don't have a Labour government next election. There is no way the Labour Party is going to win the next election. No chance. There is absolutely no chance. There will be a coming together of uh, political parties, I hate the word coalition, but a coalition or an arrangement whereby Labour will be denied office. Of that, there is no doubt, because the entire nation now is up in arms about what the Labour Party has done in government. So that I don't think is a concern. The other issue about splitting the right, it is there is no right wing in this country, as I mentioned. The split is between those who are pro-British and those who want to govern through the supranational anti-British institutions, is the way I describe them: the EU, UN, WHO, etc., etc. And the Conservative Party is not a right-wing party. It is, we call it part of the Unit Party because it has the same same belief system that the Labour Party has. It is an internationalist party. So it's not right wing. So we can't be splitting the Conservative vote. Um, and if when it comes to reform, we can't be splitting Reform's vote either, because Farage is on the record saying that a united Ireland is inevitable. We, Advance UK, stand absolutely against that. Farage is not a supporter of freedom of speech. Members of his party have been habitually thrown out and repeatedly thrown out for what they've said on Twitter. Um, Richard Tice himself describes the people at the United Kingdom marches as that lot, effectively categorizing them and then throwing them out. Um, that is the shutting down of free speech. Um, as far as democracy is concerned, Farage can't define the democratic unit of the United Kingdom. He doesn't care about Northern Ireland. So they're not great Democrats either. And under equality, as far as equality under the law is concerned, which is the other pillar of Advance UK, Farage uses lawfare. We saw the way Rupert Lowe was treated when he was thrown uh, out of Reform. So Reform is not the answer. So it's not about splitting the vote. It's about providing the British people with a genuine choice for a party that understands the root causes of the problems that are undermining our prosperity, our integrity, and our sovereignty, understanding those root causes, and having the ability to deliver the solutions for those problems, and doing it in a grown up way, in a holistic, coherent way, which will not just save the country, but then make it prosperous again. That's what Advance UK aspires to do. And I don't see the other parties doing it. Now, as far as just coming again back to the first question on Labour, we right now the key thing is to get the agenda right, make the arguments that need to be made so that the British people understand what's required to be done, win that argument, and then we'll worry about electoral strategy in 2028, 2029. This isn't about splitting the so-called right-wing vote. This is about making sure we have the solutions for the problems that have beset the country and the people there to deliver those solutions.
Absolutely. I want to turn to Turnberry and the extraordinary sights of Donald Trump up there. He advised Keir Starmer to cut taxes and tackle illegal immigration and to counter Farage. Starmer stayed silent, some say weakly. Do you agree with Trump's advice? And how does Advance UK approaches on taxes and borders differ from Labour and Reform?
Well, I thought Trump was spot on, and you could see how uncomfortable Starmer was throughout it. When Trump was talking about the basic fundamentals that a government needs to do for its people, and he said this has been a requirement for thousands of years. Defend them, make sure they've got cheap energy, allow them to go about their daily business. In other words, they've got security with law and order. And he talked about the need to drill for fossil fuels and so on and so forth. And Starmer was extremely uncomfortable. Trump correctly called out wind power for being an extremely expensive and low output, inefficient way to generate energy. And Starmer looked increasingly uncomfortable through that as well. And we Advance UK would pretty much adopt everything that Trump said during the course of that schooling that he gave our prime minister. We would, as I've already indicated, we would put back our borders, ditch the international institutions that prevent us from doing that, from being able to do that, reinstitute a sense of what being a criminal means, enforce the law, etc., etc. And I've already mentioned, I think, the differences between Reform and Advance. Reform carries the hopes and aspirations of people who believe, I think, in what I believe in, but it doesn't actually do it. It doesn't understand what the nation state of the United Kingdom is, doesn't care about Northern Ireland. It's not into freedom of speech. It polices its own members. It describes that lot as that lot. It can't define the democratic unit, and it uses lawfare and so on. Reform is a fundamentally flawed entity. The persona of Farage is great, but Reform is flawed.
Okay, I want to turn to Gaza. William Hague has argued it may be too late for a Palestinian statehood amid Gaza's crisis. You've got 147 Labour MPs are pressing Starmer to act. As Advance UK emphasises UK's sovereignty, should Britain recognise Palestine now or take a harder line on Israel and Hamas? And if so, why?
So I'm much more interested in domestic policy than foreign policy. Um, I think we've got to concentrate on the problems we have in our own country. But as far as the Gaza Israeli issue is concerned, people seem to have forgotten, certainly the front bench of Starmer's government has forgotten, that on the 7th of October 2023, Hamas went into Israel, as far as I can see, unprovoked, and killed women and children, willfully targeted the innocent in their society, and delivered to them absolutely horrendous death and torture and death. And Hamas cannot be rewarded for that. Hamas must be destroyed. And the pressure that the international community, not all of it, but the United Kingdom included, puts on Israel to withdraw is effectively tacit support, at least tacit support for Hamas. And we mustn't lose sight of the terrorist organization that Hamas is. It must be destroyed. And to be talking about the recognition of a Palestinian state now, while Hamas is still in control of Gaza, in my view, is inappropriate. Of course, we want to stop the suffering of the Gazan people. We want to stop the bombing of Israel as well. We want mortars to stop being fired from Lebanon and from Gaza and the West Bank into Israel. We want that to stop. We want missiles from Iran to stop. And we want the shooting in Gaza to stop. But the real solution comes from Hamas surrendering. That's what Hamas would do if it cared about the Gazans. It would surrender to Israel. It hasn't done it. It's still got hostages. And Starmer needs to understand that that is an intolerable position for Israel, which is an ally of the United Kingdom's. And we've got to stop flirting with the ideologies that underpin Hamas, which is what Starmer is doing. And we've got to reassert the difference between right and wrong in that dispute. And there can be no moral high ground as long as Hamas are in power. There can be no moral high ground afforded to the relative parties as long as Hamas is in charge. Hamas is morally wrong. It has to go. Once it's gone, we can then talk about what comes next.
Okay, but your view then, I mean, it would what coming next, assuming that Hamas is dealt with, is a two-state solution. Is that
Well,
the
I
right
tell
way
you
to
what,
go?
someone said to me, it was a really brilliant throwaway few comments someone made the other day to me. They said the Palestinians are mad wanting a second state. The Palestinians should actually bed themselves deep in Israel, which they had been, able to do and work peacefully in Israel, and through integrating with Israel, effectively become part of Israel. And it's a democratic country, and through the democracy within Israel, assert their own views and settle their own people. And I thought that was a brilliant, a brilliant assessment. Fighting for a two-state solution basically means you have to fight. Whereas the one that was put to me the other day, I thought was so elegant.
Okay, very clear response to that. I want to talk about the BMA strike. I mean, today's report slams the BMA for risking lives by blocking emergency strike exemptions. It's threatening the NHS stability. How would advance UK balance doctors' rights with patient safety? And what's your message to the BMA?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we must recognize, and it would be wrong not to recognize it, is that we are all getting poorer in the United Kingdom. Everyone is getting poorer because of the economic and other policies that governments have pursued, including obviously mass immigration, which has pulled out the rug from under the feet of the British worker. You can't get a fair wage in the United Kingdom. And junior doctors are no different. The entire country is suffering under the weight of bad policy that's been made for 30 odd years. And in order to really address the problem, that's what we need to tackle. We need to make the economy, the economy needs to start growing. British people need to start working. The welfare state needs to be pared back. Wages need to go up. Taxation needs to come down so that people can keep more of that which they earn.
Okay.
All of that would obviate the need for a strike. But
Okay.
right now, I would be quite hard on the doctors and saying, you've had a 29% rise or whatever it was last year. Now you've just got to work.
Okay. Finally, then, Elon Musk, bravo, and Union flag post for Advance UK, it went viral. Lots of people have talked about Elon Musk and his influence on politics around the world. As you know, his father Errol's another regular on the Andrew Eborn Show, some great interviews with him. How would you leverage this support with your member goal? And which advance UK policy do you think Musk loves most? Your free speech stance, border control, or something else?
Well, just answering that last question first, I think um, Elon Musk sees Western civilization as facing a threat to its very existence. And at the heart of that, I know he is a great believer in free speech. The Americans really understand the importance of free speech. And so I think if I were to choose anything, it would be free speech, though he sees the broader threat to Western civilization. He is supportive of Advance UK. And of course, I welcome any and all support of Advance UK, particularly from one of the most influential men in the world, one who shares a lot of the views that I have for fear of Western civilization. But Advance UK needs to build support right across the United Kingdom and from other people. And I love the fact that Elon supports us, but our mission right now is to build support in the UK.
Okay. Well, as always, Ben, it's been a delight to have you on the show. We will keep encouraging people to ask those questions, and I know that you're keen to keep answering those questions. But for now, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.